Hey everybody, this is Nathan Peterson. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and I have Justin Hughes with me. Justin, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Justin Hughes, licensed professional counselor, Dallas, Texas. I specialize in OCD and anxiety and love all things exposure therapy.
Yeah, so I thought it would be important to get Justin here to talk with me because we're OCD therapists in the area. And so we were looking at exposure scripts. This is something that many OCD therapists talk about, but we thought it'd be really cool to kind of go through like how you actually do an exposure script, why you would use it, and kind of talk about all that. And so Justin here is a really good expert on this, and so maybe we just start off with like, what is an exposure script?
Yeah, so right off the bat, the concept of a script isn't super hard to understand. In fact, if we take a favorite TV show or movie, we can think about the fact that oftentimes it's scripted. So take that script and think of using your imagination to understand it. So I don't know if you've ever seen a behind-the-scenes take of a popular show. Take Friends or Seinfeld or How I Met Your Mother, so on and so forth. And it looks so real, or it's easy to get in the moments with that. But then if you see the behind the scenes, it really lifts the curtain and it reveals, oh, this is not New York City. Oh, this is not Los Angeles, or well, it might be Los Angeles, but it's playing on the faculties of our imagination, which are so powerful. And so scripting really draws upon that concept that we have incredibly powerful imaginations.
Well, and I think of exposure scripts, we tend to think about exposures. We're going out and we're going to touch something or we're going to do something physically. And exposure scripts are great because you can do that in your own home. And it's really using your imagination,
yes.
which is awesome
yes.
to use. And so with exposure scripts, kind of going into like, what they actually are, we're facing a fear through our imagination. Maybe it's a simple way to talk about it. So as we're facing this fear through our imagination, usually we be pretty detailed in what we write. So just like you were reading a book, if you read something super simple, you're not really getting a good picture or a good imagination. You have to come up with your own stuff. But when we're writing an exposure script, it's really great because we can come up with our own emotions and feelings and tone of voice even when you're reading these things. We want to face these fears through paper.
And I think that's really key, face these fears. So the goal isn't just to face any and every fear necessarily. I mean, fear can be good, of course, but to take pathological responses to fear that we feel. So to be able to do that, the tighter we can make these scripts, not perfect, but the tighter that we can make it, so fairly accurate to our situation is key. That's where you can read a book like from Jonathan Grayson on OCD and find examples of scripts, but that script is probably by and large never going to be your exact script.
It's interesting because I've heard from a lot of people when they're learning about scripts, they're like, well, I don't know if this actually applies to my specific theme. Because you're talking about like getting germs and getting sick, but mine's like something different. It's like harming somebody. How can I write a script on that? Or even religious based. And the thing that I've learned is that definitely OCD wants you to think and believe that yours is different than everyone else's. And that's one thing that I first say, like, you're not different in that way, and that exposure scripts can actually probably work for what you're going through. So, Justin.
Nate!
One way that I actually love when people do their scripts is when they're writing down, whether it's a sentence or it's a word or it's a paragraph of whatever that feared topic is. Sometimes I say, pull out your phone and get your SpongeBob out, and use an audio app. There's plenty of them. You can record it. And when I have people record it, I don't say like, I really disappointed God today and he's really angry with me and now my family's disappointed in me. I actually say put some inflection, is that the word? In your voice. So like, God is totally disappointed in me and I'm possibly gonna go to hell, or like whatever the actual word.
That's inflection
is.
in your voice.
Like,
God is so disappointed in me.
That's pretty good.
No!
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
But at the same time, I'm like, I try not to make it a feared thing, that you're actually like, look how much I don't care that God might be disappointed in me.
Yeah, that's fair too.
And so when I'm listening to it, I might have a smile on my face, and I'm responding differently, like we talked about, and I can listen to it on repeat and repeat and repeat. I've had people going down the hallways as they're listening to it dancing.
Yes.
Like
Clients who've done, as long as they are okay with this, with their scripting, do a ringtone of their script. What?
Yeah, listen to it in the car, have
Yeah.
headphones in, listen to it at the store. If something in the store is a feared topic, people might go to these places, listen to it.
Yeah.
Have people go to police stations,
Yeah.
they're sitting in the lobby listening to their script.
Yeah.
That there's so many variations of what we can do. And, but like we said with the response part, if I do the really monotone, not really too much, then my brain's like, ooh, this is scary.
Yeah.
Something's wrong with this.
Look at it and notice. Are you avoiding? Are you trying to neutralize? Are you trying to suppress? Are you trying to distract? Are you trying to ruminate? Are you trying to check? Are you so on and so forth? Those are all ways to try to insulate you. And you might not be 100%. Nobody's going to be 100% the first time they're doing it, but start picking them off one by one sequentially. So if your posture's all wonky, do it and adjust your posture.
Yeah.
If you can only do it in the privacy of your closet of your room when you start, then do that. We talk about context variability. We learn way more richly when we switch up the context. My toddler's learning the alphabet at this point. And at the same time, she has to learn it not just at school, she has to practice in other contexts and environments, and notice that sometimes if somebody handwrites a letter, it looks just a little bit different. So we want to do that with our brains, with scripts as well. Handwritten, typed. You can do videos as well, depending on what it is, especially if it's a concern of being found out, right? Doing a video and reading a script like a confessional. Sometimes these are all just ways. The creativity doesn't stop as far as what to do. Now again, it's not for the sake of just forcing you to be distressed. That's not the point. Distress is just a marker. It's to be able to lean into the fear and not respond pathologically. Simple, simple, simple. It's just hard to do. So having a plan.
Yeah. And learn from each experience. I say after the exposure or during, pay attention. My brain is pushing this thought away, which means I'm doing a compulsion. Or it's trying to put logic to it. God's really not disappointed in me, even though I just said that. That's a compulsion. We're not trying to figure it out anymore. And so we learn from, hey, next time I listen to this or read this, I'm going to really focus on not doing this compulsion. That's how we learn from each experience. Because if it were perfect, then that'd be great. But it can't be perfect. It's impossible. And if you're trying to make it perfect, then maybe we make a mistake on purpose.
Yeah. So when you also have perfectionism, so you can do scripts for just rights or not just right OCD or perfectionistic type of not tendencies, but the subtype. And ultimately, though, a lot of the just right comes into any sort of script writing. So it needing to be the exact core fear, right, or exact right way. And so what you can do is mess it up intentionally.
Yeah.
Flip the words, make the grammar wrong, stuff like that.
So if we did real quick, specific topics, harm OCD.
Yes.
What would be a good example? Put you on the
I
spot.
want to stab Nate. So I have a thought in my head. I want to stab Nate.
Yeah. And every person might be different. Because what if stabbing's not my thing? Then it's something else. What if it's my child? Could I say, what if I throw my child, or not, what if I'm throwing my child down the stairs? Sounds scary. It sounds like I shouldn't be saying that. That one's a taboo thing. But OCD is OCD, and we treat it as such.
Postpartum OCD, a very, very common time frame where symptoms will arise. And a lot of women, too, who don't even have OCD will get a higher occurrence of intrusive thoughts after giving birth. And so, having a thought of, oh, my baby's crying and I'm feeling frustrated and I'm holding them. I look at their beautiful face, and at the same time I think, what if I threw my child down? I'm so angry and they're terrified by this. Well, okay, instead of trying to disprove it, and instead of trying to play with it, I observe I had the thought that I wanted to throw my baby down. That's a start.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw my baby down. Probably wanted to throw my baby down. Maybe not. A lot of variations there.
Yeah. Relationship OCD. I may or may not have made the wrong choice, or if we're going with just direct, I made the wrong choice, and I will suffer forever. And maybe when I'm reading it, I'm saying, yeah, it's probably true. Maybe not. And so how about religious scrupulosity or moral scrupulosity?
Yeah, a lot of subset items there. So let's take, for example, understanding. So a lot of times there's this general feeling. So what if I don't understand what God wants me to do? Or what if I don't really have a relationship with God? Okay, what if I don't have a relationship with God? What if I don't understand having a relationship with God? Sit with it, script it.
Yeah.
And when you start to notice the pull into other things, the rumination, the checking, the getting reassurance, okay, that's where the work really is. I mean, scripts are hard in and of itself, but at least in my opinion, the elbow grease really comes in when you're not giving into those compulsions.
That's really probably the biggest part. Is the scripts aren't going to help if you're doing compulsions at the same time. And it's just learning from those experiences and changing them for the next time.
What about sexual orientation OCD?
Ooh, that's a good one. So, sexual orientation OCD, I might actually say just the word gay is a word that a lot of people use. Or it could be, I am gay. Or if someone chooses to say, I may or may not be gay. And I think a lot of people are like, wait, I can't say that I am if I'm really not. Am I supposed to believe this? Am I stuck with this? That it's like, wait a second, that's compulsing. We're not trying to figure it out. We're actually just saying, I know this brings some distress, and I'm going to practice actually engaging with it and not doing the compulsions.
And I love the value emphasis there, because it's not doing the compulsion. And that's the simplicity through all of this. It's not compulsing, because compulsions pull away from what we want our focus to be.
Yeah, and there's always the option, we're using like a word or a sentence for these scripts, but there's always the option of like, what if you wrote a paragraph? Write a short story of what is being gay, if we're using that as an example, what does that mean for you? How is that going to change your life? And that's something that we can do as well, is like, let's dig even deeper to what this means.
How do you respond to folks in writing longer paragraphs for scripting? How do you teach them not to ruminate?
It's really tough. I know with rumination, we usually say...
I'm out. I'll let you answer this one.
We say, don't engage, which is like, okay, well, that's you can't just say don't engage.
Yeah, it's like people saying, just stop it, right? Just stop it.
I say, we might be engaging, but we're changing the response. So I say, every single time the brain wants to figure it out, problem solve, my answer is maybe, maybe not. Or it might choose to agree with it. So I say maybe, maybe not, or totally. Those are my two favorite words. And that teaches the brain to stop problem solving, because it knows if I tell you that you need to figure this out and you've given me the same answer, maybe, maybe not, which is definitely not satisfying, it learns from that and says, okay, I could throw this out your way, but you're just not giving me what I want. So maybe I should stop, because you're not really giving this to me anymore. That's how I deal with rumination, is give it the same answer. And not compulsively like, oh, I have to do this to feel better, but more of like, I'm engaging with it by showing you how much I don't care about this thing right now.
So you can write a long script without compulsing.
Yeah. And I usually say, what does it mean for you? So if you were gay, what does that mean? My family will be disappointed. Okay, that's the next sentence. What if your family was disappointed? They might not let me stay with them anymore. Great, there's the next statement. If they don't let you stay with them anymore, then what? Well, then I'm going to stay with my friends and they're going to disown me. Okay, there you go. Like whatever the fear actually is, you kind of just, you've already written your paragraph by figuring out what is the next thing that you're worried about. And ultimately, for me, it's like end with the core if you can. What does it actually mean for you at the end of it all? And that's kind of the kicker at the end, is like, ooh, that's what I'm really worried about, is it's not really about being gay. Maybe it's about being, God's disappointed in me. And that's really what it's about. But we're using these other things to kind of lead you down to that last little part that just gets you.
So that you can lean in and not let compulsions run your life. And in the end, not let OCD run your life, but we don't just have a switch to turn that off. The switch that's not just an automatic switch is not compulsing, decreasing it, and ultimately eliminating it.
I like it. Oh, well, good. You can apply this for really any theme that OCD throws your way.
Contamination.
Contamination.
Yeah, because a lot of times people think, we're like, what? Like, I'm just supposed to only go out. It's the in vivo situational exposures. How do you do a script with contamination?
Same thing. What does it mean? What does it mean for you? My example might be, I'm walking into school. I see that one of my classmates isn't wearing a mask. They cough. Then I just walked past that person. My brain says, "Uh-oh, you are sick," and my brain is going crazy. It wants to know if I'm really sick or not. Ultimately, it's saying, wash your hands. You probably caught something. And I realized I didn't have time to wash my hands. I came home. And when I came home, a few days later, I started coughing. I said, uh-oh, I now got sick. If getting sick is actually if it's the core fear, if it's the actual worry, but I might add different details in there of like, what does the cough actually sound like? Or what was my facial expression? Or what was that comment someone said down the hall? Like, hey, your mask is down, or whatever the worry is. You can add details to just amp it up a little bit more.
Yeah. Responsibility, OCD in various ways. I mean, subset of harm a lot of times. So it could be hit and run. Could be I am responsible to make sure that the house is checked, locked, everything's good to go. So in both of those categories, a lot of different manifestations. Of course, it's going to be based on you and what you need to face. So hit and run, I heard a bump and I didn't check. What if I never know and I hurt, injured, killed someone? Maybe I did, probably did, totally did, certainly did, and sitting with that. Or I can't know without fully checking the house that it's okay when we go on vacation, and it's going to ruin my vacation, and house is probably, totally, certainly going to burn down, and I'll be responsible, and insurance won't pay because they'll find out that I was actually thinking about it and knew. And so the coverage won't be there, and I'll face total financial ruin. Examples.
Yeah. As you're saying that, I'm thinking, I wonder, try to think about, what are you guys thinking about right now? Are you thinking, what thought comes to my mind is like, okay, wait, so you used some uncertainty there, and you also used some very certainty, like my house actually burned down. So what am I supposed to do? And I said, figure it out. There you go. There's your answer. Just kidding. It's just figure it out. No,
that's what the video is for.
You might try either. Try both. Whatever works for you. But the whole idea is we want to be uncertain regardless of whatever it is. We're not figuring it out. So where I might originally go to totally, yep, my house burned down, the catastrophe. Some people might say, I'm going to stick with the uncertainty for now. Maybe that is an enhancer later to just agree with it. So.
Why do you think, Nate, that we want to be uncertain?
Because life is uncertain. I mean, the next 2 minutes, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And it's okay to not know exactly what's going to come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Life is so uncertain, and most of the time when we guess what the future is going to be, it's wrong.
And always at some level to be wrong, some little nuance, right?
We're like, oh, that thing was not as bad as I thought it was going to be, or whatever it is. They're like, why don't we learn from those experiences? That if we learn to be more uncertain on purpose in all aspects of life, actually, not just OCD, not just anxiety, like all aspects. We don't need to know so much. We actually live a freer life because we're going more with the flow. It's actually okay to just let things be surprised. If there's a problem, we solve it. If there's not a problem, there's nothing to solve.
Yeah, and I think that's living in reality. So the living uncertain is being able to look at the fact that to be successful in life, you have to live uncertain. Some people just feel that easier. It's not as big of a deal for them. And if it is for you, I'm sorry. And that's really hard. But we want to be able to get to the spot where we can embrace, if this is reality, if I have to live uncertain, if I can't guarantee that this pathway is going to happen for myself, then why don't I get ahead of that curve and actually begin to embrace something that exists and has to exist that way?
I like that. That's good. It's great to be uncertain. And one of the things I always tell people, just kind of reiterate, is you think about any problem you've ever come across, you've probably solved it. But we spend hours, days, weeks trying to problem solve something that may never actually ever happen. We waste time. And that's another aspect I say, being uncertain is great because you get all those hours and weeks back. And if that thing actually happened, whatever the fear was, you'd figure it out. And it's being okay knowing that, like, I've done it this far in my life. Why is the next time going to be so different?
Some of the experts that I learned from initially said that you're doing one of two things. You're either discovering that the bad thing didn't happen in the first place, and or you're learning that you could handle it anyway.
Yeah, that's great.
You're great, Nathan.
Talking about this one thing, and it doesn't really... There we go. I knew that was going to happen.
Test. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Justin Hughes.
Nathan Peterson. Do you tend to project, or do you kind of talk more normal and conversational?
I usually project.
Okay, sounds good.
Like this.
We're gonna do the pedophile scripts and very whisper voice.
I'm really amateur and look at the screen the whole time.
I'm totally amateur.
No, that.